Have you ever found yourself in a situation like this? You worked and saved for months, maybe years, saw $30,000 in your account for the first time, then looked again and it was gone. A car service bill, home decoration, a few small expenses, and you were back to zero, asking yourself, what am I even working for? Or maybe you have exactly $30,000 in your account right now, but you don't know what to spend it on. It's just sitting there in your account and you can't seem to make a decision. Let me tell you something striking. What you do when you reach that first big savings milestone determines whether you build real wealth or stay stuck in the same place for the rest of your life. And most people make exactly the wrong decision at this critical moment. I'm Vera, and I've been in both real estate and finance for years. I've seen hundreds of people reach this first major savings threshold, then sabotage their financial freedom with the wrong moves. If you've worked hard to get to this point and you want to turn this savings into the foundation of real wealth, you're in the right place. Let me tell you how most people make a huge mistake at this point. They act as if they've won free money. They sacrificed for months, said no to things they wanted, and finally reached this number. And the brain immediately kicks in. You've earned it. Celebrate. Treat yourself. Go ahead and buy that thing you wanted. And before they know it, that savings has turned into a new car, home renovations, a vacation they convinced themselves they deserved. 6 months later, there's almost no money left, and they're wondering why building wealth feels so impossible. The bitter truth is this: that number is both very large and almost completely meaningless at the same time. Large because most people don't have it. According to many studies, a significant portion of people cannot cover a large, unexpected expense without going into debt. Reaching this point is a real achievement. You should be proud of yourself. But this money is still not enough for real financial freedom. It's not enough to retire. It's not enough to buy a house and a car in most cities. If you lost your job, it would barely cover a few months of expenses. This money is not wealth. It's the foundation that wealth gets built on top of. And what you do next determines everything. Let me tell you why most people stay stuck in the same place despite having this savings. The money usually sits in a checking account because that's where they accumulated it. Seeing that five-figure number feels amazing, but because it's mixed in with their daily spending money, they unconsciously start spending a little more freely after a while. Not crazy things, just a little more comfortably. A few expensive restaurants, new clothes they wanted but didn't need, a new phone they don't actually need. Each individual expense seems reasonable, but weeks and months pass and the savings slowly erodes. It drops to $25,000, to $20,000, to $15,000. They notice it going down, say, I'll be more careful next month, but they never manage to get back on track because their spending habits have already drifted upward. Then a real emergency hits. The car breaks down and needs a major repair. The computer dies, an unexpected medical bill arrives. If the savings has already eroded, this emergency wipes out whatever is left. And they're back to square one, feeling completely crushed, because money they saved for years disappeared in just a few months. This is the cycle that keeps people stuck in the same place forever. They save, they keep it in their checking account, they spend it through a combination of lifestyle creep and emergencies, and they never build real wealth because they never break out of this cycle. But what do people who actually build wealth do differently at this point? It's going to sound almost too simple to matter, but I promise you this is the difference between staying stuck and building real financial freedom. The moment you reach that number, you need to split that money and move it to different places with different jobs. Not next week, not after you think about it for a while, immediately. Because as long as all that money sits in one account you can easily reach, you're going to spend it slowly. That's just human nature. The brain sees money as available and finds reasons to spend it, but when you split that money and assign each portion a specific job, spending it casually becomes much harder. Here's exactly what you need to do the day you reach that number. First, take roughly 1/3 to 1/2 of that savings and move it to a completely separate high-yield term deposit account, and do not touch it except for genuine emergencies. Not situations like, I can't afford a vacation on my salary, the car is gone, you lost your job, a health crisis. This is your emergency fund account, and it absolutely must be physically separate from your daily spending money. Most people keep their emergency fund in the same account as their regular money, then wonder why they keep dipping into it for non-emergencies. Put it somewhere separate, somewhere that takes a day or two to transfer back, somewhere hard to reach. Let there be a real barrier between you and your money. The psychological effect of this separation is enormous. When you have $30,000 in your account, your brain thinks you can spend all of it. But if you have $8,000 in your checking checking account and $10,000 in a separate emergency fund you've committed not to touch, your brain adjusts to living on that $8,000. You think differently, you become more careful, you think twice before spending because you can't easily dip into your savings. Now let me tell you how most people mess this up even if they do this much. Even if they create a separate emergency fund, they transfer all their assets there, then feel very financially responsible about themselves. That's not terrible. Obviously, keeping $30,000 in an emergency fund is definitely better than feeding it to random purchases. But it's also not optimal because money sitting in a savings account earning 1 or 2% interest can barely keep up with inflation. You're preserving the value of your money, but not growing it. You're keeping what you have safe, but not multiplying it. This is why you only put 1/3 to 1/2 into the emergency fund when you first reach that number. That's enough to cover most one-time emergencies without completely wiping you out. But it's not so much that all your money stays in a low-yield account. The rest needs to start working for you, actually generating compound growth. And this is where the second critical move comes in. After you've secured your emergency fund, you take what's left, probably more than half of the savings, and invest it in index funds through a private pension system or investment account. Not individual stocks you picked because you read something online, not cryptocurrency because a friend said it's going to rise. Boring, simple, broad index funds that track the entire market and then you don't touch it. You leave it there, let it grow for years, ideally decades. What most people don't understand about investing until they actually do it is this. Investing is not about getting instantly rich or picking the next big winner. Investing is about putting your money somewhere it can grow faster than inflation and continuing to live your life. When you put money into index funds today, your earnings don't double next month. That's not how it works. But over 5 years, that money might grow 30 to 40%. Over 10 years, it could nearly double. Over 20 years, it could be 2 or 3 times as much, and you don't need to do anything to make that happen. You just need to leave it and let compound growth do its work. But what truly separates wealth builders from people who stay stuck is how they invest after splitting that initial savings. Because saving $30,000 once and stopping is almost meaningless in terms of long-term wealth building. Those who truly achieve financial freedom treat this number as a milestone and launch a system from this point that automatically continues building wealth. When you set up your emergency fund and put the rest into investments, you need to create automatic transfers that keep growing both buckets. Maybe an automatic transfer of a certain amount each month into the emergency fund until you reach 6 months of expenses, and another automatic transfer into your investment account. These numbers will vary based on your income and expenses, of course, but the principle is the same. You're not just saving $30,000 and saying, that's enough for me. You're making that savings the foundation of a wealth building system that runs automatically whether you feel motivated or not. This automatic system is critical because motivation is useless. Motivation gets you to this first goal. Motivation excites you about investing and building wealth. But when life gets hard, when you see something you really want, when all your friends are going on expensive trips and you feel left out, motivation disappears. Motivation gets you started. Systems keep you going when motivation fails. And the system is simple. Money comes into your checking account. A portion automatically goes to the emergency fund. A portion automatically goes to the investment account, and you live on what's left. Now let's talk about something that trips up almost everyone who reaches that number for the first time. The temptation to use it as a down payment on something big. Maybe you want to buy a luxury home and you think this money could be your down payment. Maybe you've been eyeing a nicer car and think a down payment of tens of thousands will get you a great deal. Or maybe you want to start a business and this money seems like enough to get going. Let me say this, none of these are automatically bad ideas, but if you've reached this number for the first time in your life, it's probably the wrong move. Why? Because putting all your savings into a house or car down payment drops you back to zero. You're chaining yourself to monthly payments that could last years and you have no buffer at all. If something goes wrong, if you leave your job, if the car needs urgent repairs, you can't cover those expenses on top of your monthly payment. Basically, you're setting yourself up for financial stress because you jumped too quickly from having $30,000 saved to spending it all on a down payment. People who build real wealth do something different. They keep saving after reaching that number. They get to double, then triple, quadruple, quintuple, and when they make a major purchase like a house, they put 20% down, they still have a healthy emergency fund, and they're not struggling with monthly payments. They're buying from a position of strength instead of barely scraping together enough to qualify for a loan. I know this sounds very slow and boring. You want the house, the car, whatever you've been dreaming about now, not years from now, but you need to grasp grasp this. The difference between people who build wealth and those who stay stuck is almost entirely about patience and delayed gratification. People who live with financial scarcity see that savings and think about what they can buy right now. Wealthy people think about what it could become if they're patient, and that difference in perspective determines everything. Let's briefly talk about taxes too, because many people unknowingly make mistakes here. Where you put the portion of that savings going into investments matters enormously from a tax perspective. If you just open a regular investment account and start investing, you'll pay taxes on dividends and capital gains. That's not the end of the world, but it's not optimal either. This is why I mentioned the private pension system earlier, and it's probably the best place to put your first investment money. The private pension system allows you to contribute money you've already paid taxes on, and then everything that money earns can grow for years. With government contributions and tax advantages, it makes a serious difference over the long term. You could avoid paying thousands, even tens of thousands of liras in taxes over decades, simply because you made the right choice about where to put your money when you first reach that big savings milestone. And there's something else that happens when you handle that big savings correctly. You start to understand the difference between saving and investing and why both matter, but for different reasons. Your emergency fund in that high-yield savings account is saving, safe, accessible, but not growing much. Your money in index funds is investing. It will fluctuate, it might drop sometimes, but over the long term, it will rise much faster than inflation. Most people think these are the same thing or only do one or the other. Wealthy people understand that both are essential. Saving for short-term security and emergencies, investing for long-term wealth and retirement. When you split that savings between an emergency fund and investments, you're actually putting both systems in place at the same time. You're protecting yourself against immediate threats while also moving toward future financial freedom. And once you understand this, you'll never go back to keeping all your money in a checking account or in a savings account that barely grows. Now let's address the biggest psychological barrier that stops people from doing any of this: the fear of their money being locked somewhere they can't easily access. They worked so hard to reach this savings, and the idea of transferring 3/5 of it into an investment account they can't just withdraw from whenever they want feels frightening. What if they need it? What if an emergency comes up? What if they regret it? This fear keeps people poor because it prevents them from moving beyond holding cash to actually investing and building wealth. But here's the reality. If you've set up your emergency fund properly, you can handle most emergencies without touching your investments. And if you experience a truly catastrophic emergency that exceeds your emergency fund's capacity, yes, you can withdraw money from your investment accounts. You might pay taxes or penalties depending on the type of account, but you can access it. The point isn't that the money is locked away forever. The point is that by putting it somewhere that requires a few extra steps to access, you protect yourself from impulse purchases or lifestyle creep. I see people who build serious wealth reach that number and immediately make that money harder to spend casually. They set up their accounts, they automate their transfers, and then they basically forget about it, focusing on earning more money and living their lives while the system runs in the background. People who stay stuck keep all their money easily accessible and then wonder why it keeps shrinking. Now, I need to be honest with you here. Most people reading this won't actually do any of what I've described. They'll read it, they'll think it makes sense, maybe they'll feel motivated for a day or two, and then they'll do exactly what they've always done. They'll reach that number, keep the money in their checking account, slowly spend it through a combination of lifestyle creep and emergencies, and end up right back where they started. Then they'll try to figure out why they can't seem to get ahead despite earning good money and working hard. But if you're one of the rare few who actually takes action, who reaches that number and immediately splits it between an emergency fund and investments, who sets up automatic transfers to keep growing both buckets, who resists the temptation to put everything into a down payment before they're truly ready, your entire financial future has changed. You're not just that much richer, you've laid the foundation of a wealth building system that will keep growing for the rest of your life. This savings is simultaneously your biggest achievement so far and completely insignificant in terms of where you're capable of going. What you do determines which perspective becomes your reality. Handle it right, split it, invest it, protect it, and build on it. 10 years from now, you'll look back at this moment as the turning point when you stopped treading water and started building real wealth. Handle it wrong, spend it, keep it in checking, use it as a down payment before you're ready. And 10 years from now, you'll still be trying to save that first big milestone, wondering why it's so hard. The choice is entirely yours, and you're making it right now whether you realize it or not.